Hello, everybody, and welcome to week number 4 of the Premodern Showdown Series 5. I'm Michael Hoyp. I'm joined in the booth for our first round by none other than Will Hirst. How's it going, Will?
Oh, we're living the dream, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing good, and I'm excited for some PSS action. I guess I will take a quick note that Rich Shea is currently ill, and so we are going to be postponing our third round, but we'll figure things out there, like if we need to fill some time. But we're going to look forward to our first match, where we have Álvaro Galindo up against Jared Doucette. So let's just jump right over to the decks that they have, and let's try and digest what the players might be thinking as we've reset, and now players are available to select any of their decks. So, okay.
All right.
So up first, Álvaro has brought the mono blue Stifle Knot, the blue red Welder stacks, and then the mono red Panza. Jared has red green goblins, Replenish, and the Rock. So, Will, have you kind of tried to predict, or is this something you could do on the fly? Do you want to make a prediction?
I can certainly make a prediction. God, I can talk. Álvaro has, all of these decks. I think he's going to do is go with I think he's going to pull out the big gun in mono blue knot in this one.
Okay.
It's got a great game against Jared Doucette's goblins. It's got a decent game against the Rock and can put up a fight with Replenish as well. I think that is his best choice against a full field of Jared's decks. Whether or not he's thinking one match at a time or further ahead, I do not know. But I would love to see the mono blue knot.
Okay. And then do you want to take a guess at what Jared's doing?
For Jared, I think, and I'm just going mano a mano here. I didn't look too further into it. Is if he's just going against Álvaro's decks, the Rock seems like it would be a better place. The discard really coming in advantage against possible matchups against mono red Panza stacks and not, and the removal suite of his pernicious deeds are terrible times for a decent amount of these decks. So.
Okay.
I do think if I had to choose between them, mono blue knot versus the Rock is where I would choose.
I like how every time people talk about something and I'm like, I don't think that's what they're playing, and I panic. I'm like, I feel like I screwed something up, and I'm like going to check to see what they said. I'm like, oh, all right, okay.
You didn't screw up. You're okay. You're okay.
Right. So let's go down to see what players are playing. So first up, we have Álvaro will be playing the mono red Panza, so the land destruction deck, and it, I mean, it's looking. I mean, I will say it's a little bit better against non-basic lands because of a card like Dwarven Miner, but beyond that, I think it doesn't really matter. I mean, like your Rishan ports and your pillages will still take care of any basic land. So that in my mind, I always want to say like good against non-basic lands, but that's not really the case. I mean, I guess there's wastelands as well, but. This deck is looking to slowly what your opponent's trying to do, disrupt them in their mana base, and then slowly take over the game. I mean, and that's kind of what we've seen in the previous match that I played. Is it doesn't close the door very quickly, and sometimes can allow the opponent to kind of crawl back in. So, do you have any quick thoughts about the mono red Panza list?
I mean, I being friends with the illustrious Brian Kowal, Panza is something I'm familiar with and love to see. I've always wanted to make this deck work. I want to see how it goes. I think it has good game against goblins with its removal suite and the Rock, because Rock will get off slower even with Rager. I do think even with the land destruction, Replenish just goes faster than the Panza deck does.
Okay, so Jared will be bringing the red green goblins list. This is something that we're a lot more used to in the pre-modern space. The green is for naturalize. He does have wasteland as compared to ports. I don't. I mean, I guess that could come up either way. I could see benefits of having both in this matchup. But I guess the notable thing is, like, I don't think I see Pyroclasm in the mono red list. Let me bring that up real quick. So there's not Pyroclasm, but there is some Pyrokinesis, and then lots of spot removal spells. So we'll see how well.
Yeah, let's not forget the 2 Shard Phoenixes.
Oh, yeah, that's
as well.
true. Yep. So that does a good job of the Pyroclasm impression. So we'll see how those come into play in this matchup. But I'm ready to jump down if you are, Will.
I am ready to go. I'll let him know.
Okay.
Now, this is going to be an interesting matchup. My initial thoughts is I don't even know if Ponza really needs the land destruction route. They can almost play just the control game with their fanatics, with their removal. They're certainly the control in this matchup, and they have a lot of weapons in the main deck to fight goblins. So I would probably put Álvaro. Honestly, I might put Álvaro ahead on this matchup just because I have trouble seeing Jared keeping a board. However, Álvaro looks like he did mulligan to 4.
Yeah, those mulligans certainly aren't helping him at all.
No.
Especially since, like, we kind of talked about, like, you kind of want to use all your resources to slow down your opponent, and then you want to pressure your opponent, and you kind of have to pick between doing one or the other. Mm-hmm. And I think that you're going to want to try and disrupt your opponent first, I think, with Álvaro's deck. So, he's probably going to have to put away threats. And then, like we said, if it's kind of threat light, and it might be difficult to draw those cards if he's mulligan so much.
Agreed. So looks like we've already had a fanatic go to the yard due to a firebolt. Another firebolt going to come in and take care of another fanatic. Each of those fanatics now just going ahead and being a single point of damage to Álvaro's face, and a wasteland taking care of land drop number 2 for Jared. Big fan of Rishadan Port in general. Really like to see it in goblins instead of the wasteland, and I love me a wasteland anyway. Just because goblins lacks a lot of turn 2 plays, but doesn't want to sacrifice mana.
Does Gem Palm Incinerator count as a turn 2 play? I guess it's not.
I mean, if
not
you really need it to, it's okay. I also just don't also like the Goblin Pile Driver a lot of times. So I'm just a odd cat anyway.
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing to note is Jared without a third land against the land destruction deck.
Yep.
Is something that is potentially problematic, though. Álvaro hasn't fired off a removal spell, but the Rishadan Port has been keeping Jared at bay. He hasn't been able to develop. But now we see the Dwarven 3. Miner.
Yep, Dwarven Miner notably hitting non-basics without sacrificing itself, correct?
Yes. Will, is that your phone with the notifications?
That's
you might want to turn that down.
Yeah, we're gonna shut those off. It's all good. We're here. We got this going on.
All right. Well, so Jared's able to resolve a Goblin War Chief, and if that one sticks in play, then that one does a good job of kind of fighting what Álvaro's trying to do, because if you're trying to disrupt the mana, Goblin War Chief does a good job of giving you a little discount. So, but
agreed. However, the third firebolt to the Goblin taking care of business.
And then we got the Dwarven Miner just kind of getting in there, chipping in there one at a time. So
yeah, I mean, he's a big burly dude. He likes it. Wasteland here from Jared, and another War Chief coming on in.
Yeah, I mean, like, one thing I'll note with this Dwarven Miner is that the Carplusion, or the Carplusion Forest, or I think it's a Moss Fire Valley, has been in play, but Álvaro hasn't actually found the time to activate the miner. So interesting that, like, it kind of came down, but, like, just because he's had to use his mana for other things, like getting rid of the War Chief or doing stuff, so that, like, he hasn't been able to get the value out of it.
Right. And I think in this matchup, the land destruction outside of maybe the first couple turns and the Rishadan Ports is less important than just using those spells to keep the board clear. Álvaro's deck can go 1 for 1 quite easily against this deck. And if he ever finds a Shard Phoenix with any remote good amount of mana, he's in a great position. So it looks like Wasteland went away.
So I think Álvaro is prioritizing getting rid of the Wasteland because he needs to protect his own mana. That if Jared's going to actually able to use that Wasteland on Álvaro, it's going to prevent him from getting to the point of where he's, like, casting a card like Shard Phoenix and then really wiping the board. Because here, after we've used the removal spells for 1 then, like, each subsequent Goblin that Jared plays is kind of problematic for Álvaro, and especially since we see, like, Matron will lead to more card advantage. The big way to answer is a card like Pyrokinesis for that Charred Phoenix, which that ladder needs 5 mana. So
Yeah. Slight. I don't know how many cards Jared has in hand. Matron getting Siege Gang right away, a powerful play, makes a little bit more sense now that we see a lackey. Barring the lackey, I wouldn't have been surprised to see a ringleader.
okay.
And Álvaro go ahead and picking it up.
Yeah, so the goblins come down, and like, so after like that initial like back and forth, the goblins kind of just was able to flood the board, and really like the war chief providing that hasty goblin lackey was really important. I mean, it was only in play for a split second there as the game ended, but it having haste, I mean, the dwarven miner could have played defense if you knew it wasn't attacking, but obviously with the haste,
Sure.
it caught Álvaro off guard, and that really could have changed the game. Is if you have that dwarven miner on defense, then like Jared isn't able to make that play in that position.
Exactly, I agree. And the mulligan to 4 never helpful. Álvaro put up a hell of a fight with ripping firebolt, 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 keeping the board clean. But eventually, the top of the deck, barring unusual circumstances, will run out of the gas for a turn or two. And that seemed to be what happened there.
All right, let's take a peek at the sideboards of the players. So the mono red Panza has 4 Overload, 4 Pyroblast, 4 Powder Keg, and 3 Tormod's Crypt. So a very focused sideboard here, but I guess I'm bringing in Powder Keg, but it's not a card that I'm like super excited in the Goblins matchup, just because they are pretty diverse about like going in the 1s, the 3s, the 4s, and the 5s. I mean, sometimes too, like Goblin Powder is there as well, but it's not like most other decks where a lot of their threats are 1s and 2s, and so I will expect it to come in probably for like Avalanche Riders. I don't think are the best in this matchup, and then I'm not sure, but I'm expecting some of the Powder Kegs to come in just because the other cards on the sideboard I don't think are very impactful.
Yeah. I think he probably leaves the Avalanche Riders in because it's a body that blocks, and then he doesn't have to pay an echo when he gets a land out of it. He's got enough removal to get to turn 4. That shouldn't, barring mulligans, be a huge issue. I do think he actually brings in the 4 kegs for the 4 pillages. Pillage, a extremely lackluster. I would imagine a lackluster card.
Sure.
And he would prefer, I suppose, bodies to put in front of goblins.
That makes sense.
In that case.
Looking at the
what about Jared,
sideboard for Jared, 3 Tormod's Crypt, 1 Pyroblast, 2 Hull Breach, 2 Naturalize, 3 Pyrokinesis, 1 Red Elemental Blast, 2 Tranquil Domain, and a Gem Palm Incinerator. So none of these are really standing out as like real key cards. Tormod's Crypt does interact with like some of the flashback cards and then Charred Phoenix, but it's not particularly great. I guess the naturalizes that you have in your deck are not very impactful. I mean, like, they minorly interact with Powder Kegs that you might anticipate, but other than that, I don't think there were. I'm just gonna bring back a Mistress Factory activation. It might have more merit. I don't know. I don't know. Would you rather have a Tormod's Crypt or the flashback cards and the Shard Phoenix, or would you rather have like a Naturalize or even like a Pyrokinesis for the lands? Which I don't know.
I think your biggest problems are going to be the creatures in front of you. And I think one incinerator comes in because that'll handle a factory in a lot of cases. Tormod's Crypt seems very narrow against a Shard Phoenix in the face of everything going on, but maybe. If anything gets cut, it's probably the naturalizes, but maybe like just one for a Gem Palm Incinerator.
Yeah,
there's just not much
Tinker
here.
Is also another card that you might take out. I don't know.
Maybe it is a late game answer if you hold it and save it for, say, you get to the late game. It does deal with a factory. It is a body that swings.
Yep.
I think this is really a matchup where you don't want to take out bodies on any side of it.
Yeah.
Because eventually attrition will get you there in the end.
But in general, I don't think these sideboards are having a huge impact on the games. I don't think their strategies are really dynamically changing, and pretty much will expect to see more of the same. Though I guess for the sake of Álvaro, they're hoping that the mulligans are not present in games 2 and 3.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not sure if we've seen any mulligans here. I'll double check. One thing to note of the powder keg, why I think it might be important, is it lets you effectively answer, because you'll have enough removal, usually 1-for-1, to get a lackey, do this, do that. And usually the bad problem comes is if you don't have an answer to that siege gang that comes into play on turn 5 or 6. And the powder keg gives you a holding answer to say, siege gang, okay, then I drop this, even pop it for 0, and then it's just a 2/2 who can shoot you for 2 instead of multiple bodies. That's how I, if I were playing this, would view it as more than I'm gonna get random goblin 1 or 2, just because, as you said, goblins is very good at diversifying its mana costs across its threats.
Yeah.
All right, so Álvaro, can't tell how many cards that is. I think we've had a couple mulligans.
I don't know if they actually have.
Oh, I can't really tell with the yellow sleeves.
They're orange, by the way.
Are they orange? Jeez, my computer sucks.
Unless you're looking at Jared's, and those ones are purple. So,
am I just blind? Whatever, I'm fine with it. They look yellow.
Maybe you're just seeing the Misty Mountains where like everyone just had yellow sleeves.
maybe. Just whatever. They're sleeves. I can't tell what he's got in his hand. Looks like Jared's keeping 7. Álvaro's keeping some number.
Yeah, I don't think they put cards on the bottom.
Okay, sweet.
Jared might be letting us know, but
yep. Oh, they both keep 7. Okay, so I am just blind. My wife has told me I need to go to the eye doctor recently, so she's probably right at this point. So here we go. Skirk Prospector coming out versus a Mog Fanatic. Fanatic will do the thing. Slightly surprised at the attack. This is what I would do.
I would say it might just be the indication that Álvaro is going to be trading that Mog Fanatic anyways.
Right.
I will say the Goblins deck doesn't have, other than Goblin Lackey, like a lot of 1-tough creatures that are really important to stick around. And given Álvaro's game plan, like Prospector could be a card that like you want to get off the board, though. From Jared's position, I don't think you a lot of times want to sacrifice a goblin to put like a war chief into play, because there are like so many bolts and fire bolts out of Álvaro. So,
additionally, he has another Mog Fanatic. So,
yep. So this lackey is kept at bay. So,
yeah, this lackey is just cute,
just hanging around.
Yeah, he's just there doing lackey things. It would look much better with the new Secret Lair lackey. I will be playing that deck in a monthly, and if I can get to the top 16, it's going to be great, because I'm going to get all these awesome goblins. They're amazing. Look up the new Goblin Matron and the new lackeys. They're great. They're just great. I'm gonna turn to Phil to help me with my deck choice and art choice designs, as he is the master. All right. So land's coming down. Well, this lackey's a brave lackey.
Well, that's all he's got to do, right? He's going to deny the Fanatic at some point, so
that's true, and he's going to trade for no damage to him now that the Mithras Factory got tapped.
Yep.
So just taking advantage of that there. Nothing here with those remaining 2 mana for Jared. Definitely has to feel much more comfortable for Álvaro right now. Full grip. Board is clear. Has all his mana. He's just got all the things. Wow.
Yeah, the game is definitely avalanche. Okay.
Oh, no, always
dust bowling right
Really? Away. Okay, fair enough. Really prioritizing that land destruction.
Yeah, especially because like the green mana doesn't like really equate to anything in this matchup. There's not like a sideboard card that. So I think with Álvaro is just executing his A plan and say, okay, nothing's on the board. I'm just going to use this opportunity. He probably has a number of lands still in his hand that he's able to just say like maybe Jared just doesn't have extra lands, which he doesn't. And now we can try and get to the late game where I don't know. Maybe I can just sneak a win because you're not casting any spells, and I am able to blow up all your lands.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. War Chief coming down will alleviate the expensiveness of Jared's guys. Powder Keg going to tick up. This is a dangerous spot with if he does not have any. There you go. Fried war chiefs
Yep.
and a fanatic. So this is certainly the game of who is going to run out of the resources first. The empty hand and who top decks well, because neither deck truly with any real actual card advantage in the form of drawing cards or filtering cards to any extent. So at the mercy of, well, that's not true. I'm sorry, matron and ringleader. I lied. I'm a big liar pants.
All right, I will note that Jared is fetching a force in the spot, and like we looked at the sideboard and we didn't think of like cards that were that impactful. So that must be indicating that he has green cards in his deck at this point. So that's what I'm taking out of that, because otherwise, I would just be getting the mountain. So
yeah, I mean, so he must have kept in his naturalizes. Because I don't think there's any way he brings in Tranquil Domain or Hull Breach. And he has plenty of mountains, so that
I mean,
has to be it.
The only other thing is if he's bluffing that, but I don't think. I would be surprised.
I don't know if that's the bluff I want.
I mean, it's a very it doesn't get you a lot of value, and also it's not very impactful in either way. So,
So one thing that may or may not come up within this matchup is that get to encampment. We don't see it work or matter as much as the first strike on that will essentially block, if it lives, any goblin forever and a day.
Yep.
So something to definitely consider. A Mog Fanatic will make that plan harder, in theory.
Yep. Mog Fanatic or Gem Palm Incinerators or Wastelands are all ways to interact with that the key to encampment. But if it is blocking it, it does a very good job of holding off goblins. So
absolutely. There's the matron. So right now, though, this is where the card advantage gets there. Álvaro down to 3 cards in hand, only 3 lands. And Jared is able to now, if this matron goes and gets another ringleader or something like that, it's hard for Álvaro to catch up to this sort of advantage that those cards will provide.
All right, so the matron gets a war chief, so that might be an indication. I guess if Jared has a number of goblins in hand, that mana might be the biggest constraint, and he's looking to turbo that out. I guess we will keep attention of that powder keg. It is now at 3, so there might be a little dance of Álvaro keeping it on 3, and then Jared not deploying the goblin matron or the goblin war chief. Sorry. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes into play, but. The Avalanche Rider comes down and takes out a mountain.
Body that will obviously get the land and then put itself right in front of any goblin making its way in. I don't think that Powder Keg is advancing anywhere past 3 at this point. The Siege Gang may be threatening, but I think that Álvaro will probably have an idea. I think you're right that he's got to be more afraid of War Chief being able to power up those explosive goblin turns.
And it'll be interesting to see if Jared is willing to commit to the War Chief or if it just stays in hand. If you're trying to blanket that way, or just say, okay, I have another War Chief or something else that on 3 that I want to play, or just getting it off the table so that I know that my 4s and 5s are safe.
Okay. He's going to ticket.
All right, interesting. Also, I guess more surprising that the Avalanche Rider is staying in play, but I mean, Álvaro knows what's in his hand. So, obviously, if he has a bolt or something, a bolt could get rid of a War Chief, and then now we have an answer for the Goblin Ringleader or potentially the Sieging Commander that would come down later.
Exactly. I would assume that's the case. Avalanche Rider also a body for this growing board. He has to be building up time here to try and find a Pyrokinesis or a Shard Phoenix of some sort is probably his best game plan.
All right. The War Chief comes down.
That does tap Jared out for the moment, but no land has been played this turn.
I mean, if we got to the point where we were just casting Shard Phoenix, it's kind of hard for Jared to really like present enough threats and refill things.
So he shot the Avalanche Rider.
So he used both Mog Fanatics to get rid of it?
Yes. Okay. The powder keg blows up a ringleader, a block of the matron.
Block on the War Chief,
okay.
and then shot the matron.
Block on War Chief, shoot, and then
yep. So
does that.
No combat damage was dealt, or I guess
nothing.
Like
absolutely nothing. So. And now there are no creatures on the board. Okay. Now, the longer this goes on, the more impactful that Get-To encampment actually might become. Because that's at least 2, if not 3, of the Mog Fanatics down.
Mm-hmm.
So the removal outside of Incinerator is narrowing for Jared outside of that Siege Gang commander.
I do agree that the Gitu can do some work, but I think the looming threat of Jared getting to 5 mana. I mean, I guess Wastelands out of Álvaro could change that, though. It doesn't feel good to use 2 of your non-basics to get rid of one of Jared's, since Jared has leaving that Wasteland up. But I don't know what is in Álvaro's hand, but I do not want Siege Gang on this board. But I don't know.
No, Siege Gang would be rough.
It's just the problem is like, yeah, you can delay it, but eventually I think Jared's going to draw enough mountains that it's going to come down. I think that's what we're seeing, is we're seeing 2 lands in exchange for 1, where Wasteland targets the Wasteland, and then Jared uses it to target... Oh, he's targeting the other Wasteland. Okay. I think I might do the Gitu encampment because there is the Dust Bowl in play, or get rid of the Dust Bowl.
I'm slightly surprised with the encampment not dying. It feels like that's the bigger threat. He's going to Firebolt. Yep. And notably, we are now at 5 mana. So, sure, could
Right.
he did have the Naturalize. I was going to say, notably, if he still had that land, once Jared has to tap out to play the Siege Gang commander.
Mm-hmm.
So the shooting of the Siege Gang with a flashback bolt is not amazing for Jared, even if he gets 3/1/1s. There is a matron, though.
Yeah.
That I wonder what he gets. He's waiting for mana to get Siege Gang, but he's seen a Firebolt.
What if he just gets Skirk Prospector here?
I've done that before. Like, Skirk Prospector is the MVP in almost all Goblin lists I've tried to play. That card is just stupidly good for no reason. Yep.
All right.
There it is. There's my boy.
Yes. Yeah, and this would be a good situation where Jared only needs to sack the Goblin Matron. That looks like the removal of the spell is going to take care of the Skirk Prospector. I was going to say that was going to leave him with a Siege Gang that had resolved with a Skirk Prospector, which, I mean, probably wouldn't matter too much, but like all use gives you a little bit more options. Thanks, even if you're tapped out. So,
all right. So this is close one here, 13-12. Another. Here we go again. But I mean, the result's going to be the same. There's no way, barring another land, that Álvaro lets a prospector live if that's what he goes to get. Ringleader this time. Gonna restock the hand, and it's gonna be tougher to keep fighting through Ringleader after Ringleader.
The Goblin deck has done a very good job of replenishing threats that have been answered with the removal spells from Álvaro.
Yeah. And if Álvaro has to play the game worrying about Siege Gang Commander, it almost lets your other creatures be better because Álvaro is now afraid to deal with them, or he'll be more. I would think more reluctant to like waste a burn spell on it or something like that. Especially now being down to 1 or maybe 2 cards in hand.
Yeah, I think the card that Álvaro would want most is Shard Phoenix. This would be like a
Yes.
great time where you have an exchange where if Jared taps out, puts all the goblins into play, and then you do have the Shard Phoenix. But given that the way he's
script in.
Okay,
Nice.
it'll be interesting to see what cards that Jared had taken out, since we didn't see that many cards that were unappealing, I guess. So
exactly. Yeah. Oh, hard cast pyrokinesis. That's awesome.
Oh, that's a good way to do it. No card disadvantage there.
Not at all. The top of the deck is now Álvaro's friend and or enemy.
So one thing I'll note, so that was a spot where it was taking out a ringleader and 2 matrons. The only thing is though, like if now a sieging comes down, then like a sieging is much more valuable than those 3 goblins. So I don't know if that's an indication saying that Álvaro has another removal spell for the sieging. Because if that were the case, I mean, like your Gitu encampment in theory can hold off all 3 of those goblins really well. So
I mean, and he does have the removal. He's no cards in hand, but he has 3 firebolts in his yard.
Okay.
So he does have that opportunity. Here comes a War Chief, which will negate that Rashad and Port. Oh, that's
that Tormach trips. Yeah, that takes care of the firebolts that you had mentioned. So
yeah, that's. If that leaves Álvaro at the top of his deck, that opens up that Siege Gang commander in a hell of a way.
I mean, the Gitu encampment will at least hold off attacks, most likely. I mean, maybe you'd be willing to trade 5 damage by losing either the War Chief or the Siege Gang.
Yeah,
you're getting close to that point. Like, if you just played a Siege Gang and attacked with all the goblins, I guess there's still... Yeah, well, there's only 1 Rishadan Port here, right? Or there's 2?
Yeah.
One's a Dust Bowl, one's a
Rishadan Port.
Yep.
But that's negated by the War Chief. Yep.
If Sieging comes down... Yeah, here the real question is whether Jared's willing to commit with everything. You'd be throwing away a 2/2, which would probably be Sieging in the spot. You'd be dealing 5, putting Álvaro to 6.
I don't think so.
I guess the benefit is that if you get to untap, then you basically get to deal a ton more damage. Well, you get to deal almost the same amount of damage, but get to keep your best creatures. So,
yeah. Wasteland going to go ahead and get a City of Brass. Mana being stacked up. Avalanche Rider. Okay. There we go. Yep. Leaving open. I think you have to take the red. Yep. So active Siege Gang on the table. Lands coming down. The big thing though is like this is where we're seeing the card advantage really matter, right? From ringleaders that we've talked about is even if Álvaro is able to work his way through this, and here comes another matron.
I was to say, I mean, like obviously the card advantage is good for Jared, but like almost in a spot like just the Siege Gang commander is still like kind of a problem. Like if you got rid of the Avalanche Rider and then had the threat of activation killing the Gitu encampment, then you're chipping in for like 3 or 4 damage every turn just with that card.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. My bigger point mainly just being is if, he does make himself out of a tough situation, the other shoe gets to drop in that case. But it's looking pretty good for Jared. That Tormod's Crypt probably more impactful than either of us were truly considering in that circumstance, getting rid of 3 removal spells that Álvaro would have the opportunity to have cast.
Yeah, if he was able to deploy those, then the game would be a lot different. One thing to note here is that Jared is close. He was close to being able to like just get a pile driver and then just attacking with a huge chunk, and then, but since there's two creatures in Avalanche Riders and Key to Encampment, the pile driver would not get through. So, I mean, that have we seen? How many pile drivers have we seen? Is that a card that Jared maybe would have boarded out, but thinking that he just will never have a lot of goblins to play? But I don't know. It seems like I don't know if I'd be taking it out since there's a lot of removal spells need to be pointed at other goblins, and that one kind of has a big red flag on its head, I guess. A big target.
It does. It can also just be chumped if need be. I don't think you take all of them out. You probably leave one in as a matron target in a good situation, but oof. All right.
All right, so a spot where Jared's low on mana, he's able to take out the Sieging Commander. So now we're just left with a bunch of goblins that, in theory, can be kept at bay with a Gitu Encampment, but I think with this large attack and Álvaro's life total at low enough, I think Jared might be willing to throw away a goblin for a good amount of damage. And this ringleader is going to show nothing. Lots of lands. But I mean, just like a 2/2 haster is not bad in this situation.
Swing with your ringleader.
Okay. 3, 5, 7.
He's at 3.
Maybe it was 8.
He needs Shard Phoenix, and he needs it now.
Yep, Álvaro will take a peek. It is a Dwarven Miner.
I thought he got it for a second. I was waiting for it. All right. Yeah, so it looks like Jared was able to bring in or keep in his naturalizes and also bring in the Tormod scripts.
Okay.
So the tail of the tape is the the card advantage, at least in my opinion, is the card advantage that is provided from the various goblin cards. So it looks like maybe he sided into naturalizes, taking out a siege gang.
I'll jump down to the players. Maybe we can hear them chatting. So
yeah, that'll work.
Sideboarding. I'm most scared of the Shard Phoenix. Yeah. So I brought in a couple crypts. I wasn't sure what was better, Fanatic or Gem Palm against you. I feel like they both have like pros and cons. I feel like the I'm not quite sure. Because like I'm worried about Grim Lavamancer, but like and get to Encampment, which is Fanatic's better against, but like you have the ability to not let me have any goblins, so it's like, are they going to be good enough? I don't know.
Yeah, I think from your 3 options of decks, Goblins was the worst for me.
Yeah, I think it had the best matchups against your decks.
Yeah.
I think
I wanted you to play Replenish or Rock. Because you're playing the stat lands, more or less your build is a little bit slower than the usual one.
Yeah, so, it's true.
Yeah, I wanted that, or Replenish, of course. So yeah. I was hoping that I didn't face Goblins. I mean, before, like, I will say the last 3 tournament games I play against Goblins, I lose all then 3, and before I never lose a single game against Goblins.
Really?
So, yeah.
Okay.
I made some changes. I think that Phoenix is not that good.
Yeah, it's pretty slow. Like it goes all the way till turn 5, and so that's tough.
Yeah, in the beginning I played 3 Pyrokinesis, which is really good against Goblins.
Yes.
I played some other things that helped me against you, like 2 Barbarian Rings, or other stuff. That it was mostly focused against creatures.
Right.
When I send this, I have faith that I could improve. I'll play better against Goblins, but yeah, I cannot do much against Mulligan for 4.
No, Mulligan 4 is hard to beat. Hey guys.
Hello.
Hello.
What's going on?
Not much.
Not much.
But yeah, that was, I mean, like it was a really interesting game, and like we weren't sure if a card like Tormod Script was going to come in, and we saw it get flipped to Ringleader, and then like I think it was like the next turn or something, you got 3 of the firebolts or something from the graveyard. That was like very key, because if those don't get removed, then the texture of that game was a lot different, at least for the next few turns. So
yeah, I had that Tormod's in my hand since the beginning of the game.
Okay.
I just was like waiting for a reason to play it, and when I had the War Chief that I had set up for the next turn, I wanted to make sure that lived. So I was he was on the top deck, so I was like, okay, well, I'll get this. It seems worth it to get rid of the firebolts, even though I really want to get rid of Shard Phoenix. But at the same time, like I had to make a move. So yeah, I was holding on to that for like a good opportunity, and it seemed to present itself. But yeah, unfortunately, Álvaro had to mulligan pretty bad down to 4 in game 1, so that skewed that game. But I think that second game was a good battle.
Yeah, I mean, actually, the first game, if you guys didn't if we didn't know you had mulliganed, your draw was like kind of smooth. It was way more of a game than I would have thought. So it was very unfortunate that you had to mulligan that much, and we're just down resources. But
yeah, and my last 3 games against goblins in different tournaments, I feel like they have more lands than me. Like I played something like 28, 29. They played 24, and they keep drawing lands, and sometimes I don't do anything.
Yeah.
The world's not fair. That's yeah. But yeah.
Yeah.
So Jared, what was your sideboard in game 2 for the Crypts? What did you take out?
So it was kind of tough. Like I was trying to figure out like what is better, Fanatic or Gem Palm, because I think it's hard to say, because whereas the Fanatic can kill, he has 2 Lava-Mancers, which are problematic, and he also has the get to encampments that are X1s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then like the Gem Palms can kill an Avalanche Rider or a Dwarven Miner, right? So more easily. So I was kind of like split on what I should have like kind of kept in. So I actually ended up boarding it down to 2 of each in the deck. So I moved out. That was 2 Fanatics, the 1 Gem Palm, and a Sharpshooter to move in 2 more Naturalizes, and I only moved in 2 Crypts, not all 3. I just I wasn't quite sure what to do, because all my card advantage cards are what basically puts me over the top deck in those games, like Ringleader and Siege Gang. Even though Siege Gang's really high in the curve, and obviously I struggled to hit that, so maybe I should have boarded out 1. I don't know, but like the rest of the cards, but those are also like how I win the game kind of cards. So it was kind of hard to say. I ended up doing the extra naturalizes just because I knew he had 4 kegs, and he also had the Mistress Factories, so I figured they were going to have targets. And at worst, and so I was just kind of like, maybe I didn't need all 4 of them, but it's still good to have those because of keg. Keg's actually not really that great against goblins because of the different the casting costs are so varied, but it's still, I knew they were coming in, so and I wanted to make sure that something important like at 3 like my War Chief survives.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, this build is more focused on beating Dreadnought, or at least having a chance. In the first build of the sponsor deck, I play Disc instead of Powder Keg, which is much better against like goblins and other creature deck in general. But yeah, if you notice, I'm playing 4 Overload, 4 Powder Kegs, 4 Pyroblast. A lot of hate against that. So yeah. You get better matchup against that, but worse matchup against your good matchup. I was telling you, this is my 3rd match against Goblin. I lose all 3, so probably I will have to return to the first one.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Well, it was a great matchup to see. The game 2 reel back and forth. Just the power of a ringleader outside of that last one really on display, and trying to keep up with it. Is Álvaro, is that something that you run into in this matchup? You said you had not lost this matchup before.
Yeah. I mean, before the other 3 and the other 2, this one too, I never lose a whole match against Goblin. Usually it's more or less easy. But again, my deck was more focused on extra creature removal, like Barbarian Ring, even the Rat's Edge. one card used that was really useful in this matchup. So I didn't play Phoenix 2. I played 3 Pyrokinesis. So yeah, again, it's a metagame option. Basically, you have to choose where you put your cyber against and basically build it against it. So in this case, I was expecting more decks.
That makes sense.
And Terrorbots too, because they can't do anything against Terror.
All right. I don't see any questions from chat. So I think we'll let our players go as we get our players set up for our second round. So thank you, Álvaro and Jared. Jared, you're jumping in, and Jared's going to be doing commentary, and Will's going to be jumping down to play. So we will see them in different ways. But good match tonight, boys. And we'll take a quick break as we get things set up for our second round. So don't go anywhere.